Share via email. Report story. By Anime Fan 299,110. Alright everyone. Settle down. Mr. Izawa said to the students of Class 1A, I have one last announcement to make. In light of what has happened recently with the various attacks made by the League of Villains, the principal has decided to host a school dance. The date is set for March 2nd. Attendance is mandatory and I hope that you will all behave and not act like the pathetic, perverted morons that you are. He took that golden opportunity to shoot a glance at Denki and Mineta, who were known for being partners in crime when it came to troublemaking. For those who are lucky enough to actually get a partner and want to know how to dance, Mr. Aizawa continued, there will be a sign up for dance lessons. In addition, you will be judged on your performance at the dance by the teachers and chaperones. Whoever receives the highest score will perform the final dance that evening. That is all. You are dismissed for the day. As soon as he left the classroom, the entire class burst with excitement. Mina began talking with Toru about what dress she was planning to wear and who she was hoping would ask her out. Shoto was talking to Momo about something, and Iida was fighting a losing battle by asking everyone to calm down. Izuku Midoriya couldn't believe what he had heard. A mandatory dance in front of the whole school. To him, it actually sounded nice. After everything they went through, the students at UA deserved some time to themselves. Soon, he began to dream about being in a decorated ballroom with numerous couples dancing around in tuxedos and dresses. He himself was dressed up in a green tuxedo and was slowly dancing with a girl in a pink dress. As they continued to dance, he was able to imagine his rough hand pressed against her soft back, the shade of pink on her rosy cheeks, and the buoyancy of her chestnut brown hair. Midoriya, Denki's voice said as it snapped Midoriya out of his thoughts. Oh, sorry Kaminari, he said sheepishly. What were you saying? Quote. I asked if you had any idea who you're gonna ask to the dance. Denki said, rolling his eyes. Come on, Kaminari, Kirishima chimed in. It's obvious who he's gonna ask. Seeing the quizzical look on Midoriya's face, Kirishima grabbed his chin and pivoted it to the front of the classroom. Midoriya's eyes soon fell on a girl with chestnut brown hair and rosy cheeks. This girl's name was Ochako Uraraka, and she was Midoriya's secret crush since they first met at the UA entrance exam. Realizing who Denki and Kirishima were talking about suddenly made Midoriya shiver and sweat. But IIICC can't ask OO Ochako out. He stammered. W or JJ just FF friends. Sure you are, Kirishima said with a sly grin, and my hero name isn't Red Riot. Come on, Midoriya, Denki said, just ask her out. The worst thing that could happen is that she'll say, no. Gulping, Midoriya said, okay. As he made his way toward Ochako, he tried fruitlessly to calm himself. This, however, was to no avail, as he felt as though his legs were heavy as lead. It felt like he was walking straight into unknown territory and he was ill-prepared. After what seemed like an eternity, he was next to Ochako. Deku. Ochako said happily as she saw Midoriya standing next to her. Crazy thing about the dance, huh? I wonder who's going with who. I bet Shoto's going to ask Momo. They seem to have a thing for each other. That's great, Midoriya said as his legs started shaking. Say, Ochako, there's something IWW want to ask you. Sure. What is it? Ochako asked inquisitively as she looked at Midoriya. Promoted stories. You'll also like. Feelings. Aizawa. X-Reader, 57K 1.3 KRE posting. This intel I edited, sorry if it's not good, it's my first time writing a story. You enroll at UA and you have multiple quirks you are really good at using. Why? Izuku's Harem Academia 181K1.7 Qst. Read. Free. Oni Shots 149K3K. This is a collections of free X readers. Requests on this are now closed. Son of All for 1767K12.6K. This is a fanfic of extremely op Izuku. I do not own BNHA. Not all heroes wear capes. Some just have A.42.2K 1.4 Kella. Everybody. This is a suicidal, depressed Deku book with Dadmic. Will their bond grow? Will Mike fuck up? Will Izuku try to kill himself? Find out yourself. Number 1 radio. After all. Fluke 11.3K 802. Will edit once I'm free. N. This is a work of fiction, and any similarity with other works is purely coincidental. Excuse grammatical errors and misspellings. Eng. Hurt cuz I love you to death. Izuocha. Ha. 0.8.6K 141. Class 1A is now Class 2A and is working to be better heroes due to events that had happened before. Deku has gotten strong feelings toward Uraraka during the summer as well. The T thing is. Midoriya tried to say, but couldn't get the words out. What I wanted to ask was. Willie Ugo Tothetans with me. What? Ochako asked, clearly confused by Midoriya's sudden and rushed outburst. Midoriya, realizing what he had done, tried to calm himself. What I was asking was, he said, Ochako, will you go to the dance with me? The silence that followed in the room was so eerie, you could hear a pin drop. Nobody dared to move or say anything to worsen the silence as all eyes fell on the two students. Even Bakugo, who could have cared less about the two, leaned his head to the side in order to get a better view of them. Midoriya stood frozen as he waited for Ochako's answer. Ochako, meanwhile, was in a state of shock after what she had heard come from her friend's mouth. You dance, she said in small spurts. I gotta get my homework done. See you later, Deku. She cried out as she ran out the door in a fluster. Midoriya replied in shock as he watched her hurry out of the classroom. He stood there, frozen, unable to comprehend what she had just said. Oomph, Kirishima said as he placed a hand on Midoriya's shoulder. Tough break, buddy. I stand corrected. Denki said, that's the worst thing that could happen. Stupid, stupid, stupid. Ochako said as she patted her cheeks with her hands repeatedly. After her sudden runaway from Midoriya, she didn't stop running until she had reached Class 1A dorms and closed the door to her room behind her. It was only after she closed her door that she realized what she had done and said to Midoriya. He asked you to the dance and you just ran away like a cheetah on Red Bull. She slid down her door onto the floor and groaned. Why didn't I just say yes? She asked herself. A sudden knock at the door caused Ochako to jump in shock. Who is it? She asked, praying that it wasn't Midoriya. Relax, Ochako, the person said. It's me, Mina. Can I come in? Breathing a sigh of relief, Ochako unlocked the door and let the acid user in. So, Mina said as soon as Ochako closed her bedroom door, mind telling me what that was all about? Ochako sighed and said, I don't know, I just wasn't expecting Deku to ask me that sort of thing. I had a hard time contemplating how to handle it and I guess I just sort of panicked. Sort of panicked, Mina asked with a raised eyebrow. You ran out of there like Usain Bolt on his fourth cup of coffee. And Usain Bolt is an Olympic runner from Jamaica who holds the 100 meters world record with 9.58 seconds. When she saw Ochako's face turn red from embarrassment, Mina calmly placed her hand on her shoulder and said, "Listen, Ochako. You and Midoriya don't have to go to the dance as boyfriend and girlfriend. You could just go as friends. And besides, he wasn't asking you to date him, just to share a few dances with him." As Mina's words began to sink in, Ochako thought about them. Maybe she was right. Maybe Izuku was just asking her out to share a few dances. "You're right, Mina," Ochako said with confidence. "I mean, we're just friends. It's not like he's asking me to go out with him. I've decided," she exclaimed as she raised her fist in the air. "I'm going to the dance with Deku. Well, he's downstairs in the living room if you want to accept his invitation," Mina said, smiling at how her friend had regained her chipper mood. "Also, you might want to apologize to him." Ochako nodded in agreement. She was sure Deku must have felt embarrassed by her display of panic. She made her out of her bedroom, down the stairs, and soon arrived at the living room where everyone else was either doing their homework or discussing the lessons taught today. She noticed Midoriya sitting on a couch talking to Ida about today's lessons. Ochako cleared her throat to get his attention, to which Midoriya turned to face her. The entire room became silent as the two looked at each other. Then, Midoriya rose to be at eye level with her. "Listen, Ochako," Midoriya said, "about what happened during the ending of class, I just want to say that I'm so." Before he could apologize, Ochako raised her hand up to silence him. "No, Deku, I'm the one who should be sorry," Ochako said calmly. "You were just asking me to attend an event with you and I sort of overreacted. And to answer your question from earlier, yes, I would love to go to the dance with you." "Oh," Midoriya said, shocked that she accepted his invitation. Gee, great. That sounds great. By the way, how are your dance skills?" "Not very good," Ochako said, scratching the back of her head embarrassingly. "I've never really been to a school dance before, to be honest." "Well," Midoriya said with a mixture of both nervousness and enthusiasm. What if I sign us both up for that dance class? That way, we could win the top prize and enjoy ourselves at the same time." Sure," Ochako exclaimed as she beamed. "That sounds great, Deku." A few days later, Midoriya and Ochako found themselves outside a makeshift dance studio along with 10 other pairings. Looking through the crowd, they were able to recognize Mina with her arm wrapped around Kurashimi's and Denki with an annoyed Kyoka standing next to him. Just then, the doors opened up to reveal a spacious room suitable to fit all of them. "Welcome, everyone, to your first dance lesson," an airy, feminine voice called out. Everyone's attention soon turned to a woman who was standing on an elevated platform to the right of the room. Midoriya and Ochako immediately recognized her as Uebami, otherwise known as the pro-hero Snake Hero. She was wearing a red silk dress with an open seam on her side to show her left leg and a heart-shaped cutout on top that showed off the top half of her cleavage. She still had her 3 snakes tied up in her hair. A few of the male students, including Denki, started to stare and laugh goofily at how beautiful and revealed she looked. Those students, however, were brought back to reality courtesy of their female partners' feet stomping on theirs. Ochako and Mina giggled a bit as they saw Kyoka shooting a glare at Denki who was rubbing his foot. "Now for some of you, dancing is a new experience," Uebami said as she made her way off the platform. "Some can be easy, while others can be complex. But it is all in the same. To dance is to perform a sacred ritual that has been passed down from generation to generation. A ritual that involves the closeness of two people, their bodies pressed together as they perform an art that some may consider taboo. It is like forbidden love. You desperately wish to be with your partner forever, but you cannot and thus, you must stay close but also keep your distance as you express your want and need for each other. A few of the students, including Midoriya and Ochako, were dumbfounded by this. They had no idea that someone could get really into the notion of dancing like Uebami. Now then, she continued, today's lesson will be a waltz. It is very simple. The male holds his right hand up and to the side and extends out his left arm so that it looks like the letter circa. All the male students soon made poses as she had told them. Excellent, Uebami explained. Now, the females will hold their left hands up and straight. So this way, now that she is gone and is above. Noticing this closeness, the two began to blush a bright red. Now that you are with your partner, Uebami continued, the rhythm of the dance is the numbers 1, 2, 3. As you move your feet, be sure to move in a circle a bit. Sorry if I step on your TT toes. Midoriya said, still nervous at how close they were to each other. Ditto. Ochako replied, after a few wrong steps, a few stepped feet, and apologizes from each other, Midoriya and Ochako felt like they were getting the hang of it. You're a pretty good dancer, Deku. Ochako said with a smile. You're not so bad yourself. Midoriya stated as he returned the smile in kind. As if anyone would call what you two are doing dancing. Said an unfortunately familiar and dislikable voice. Midoriya and Ochako turned their heads to face Class 1B students Nito Monoma and Itsuka Kendo. Seriously, I've seen better dancing from a pair of fish flopping on the ground gasping for air. If you know so much about dancing already, Monoma, then why are you even here? Ochako asked with a glare at the loudmouth student. Oh, you know, Monoma said with a smug grin. Just wanted to show these rookies what their competition is going to be at the dance. And trust when I say this, I will enjoy watching you two fail the Moao. He stopped abruptly, for Itsuka had stepped on his foot. Sorry, Monoma, didn't mean to. While he closed his eyes as he winced in pain, however, she shot both Midoriya and Ochako a sideways smile. Sorry about him, she whispered. I've been trying to get him to watch what he says. But as always, he doesn't know when to not run his mouth off. No worries. Ochako said smiling. You're pretty good at dancing. Same with you too, Itsuka said. Keep it up and I know you can do great. I think that's enough for today. Today, Uwabami announced over the class. See you all next week. And remember, practice makes perfect. So, who are you going to the dance with? Midoriya asked Shoto as Class 1A enjoyed their dinner. He's going with Momo, Toru said, as the piece of chicken that was on her fork disappeared. A.N. She ate it. The two students who got in by recommendation are going to the dance together. Makes sense. Hiroshima said. Yes, well, Shoto said. My father insisted on the fact that I should attend the dance with someone of equal or upper class since it will help boost our family's status in society, regardless of whether or not I like that person. Well, Momo said as she took Shoto's hand. I guess it is safe to say that both you and he are benefiting from this. True, Shoto said as he smiled at his girlfriend. But the difference is that I chose to follow my instincts rather than my father's orders. Momo returned the smile in kind and kissed Shoto on the cheek, causing all the girls to dot at the sight. So Iida, Kaminari asked, turning to the class representative, who are you inviting to the dance? I am actually going to be attending the dance by myself. Iida said, though it is a festive event that is meant to be enjoyable, discipline must still be enforced. Therefore, I will be acting as a student chaperone to ensure that no tomfoolery shall befall on the dance. You know, Iida, Hiroshima said as he shook his head in disappointment. If you weren't such a stickler for the rules, you might actually have a chance at getting either a girlfriend or a date. I'll have you know that there are plenty of lovely women in this world who admire a man who is rule-abiding and knows how to enforce discipline when necessary. Iida shot back haughtily. Yeah. The only problem is that they're found in manga, not in the real world. Hiroshima muttered under his breath so that Iida wouldn't hear him. Over the next few weeks, Midoriya and Ochako went to each dance class and learned many different dances, including the Charleston, the tango, and even the chop. Every class, they were met by rude comments from Nito and apologies from Itsuka. However, the comments made by Nito only pushed the two further into wanting to win the competition. Every other night, the two of them practiced the dance moves until they felt they were done for the day. Hey Deku, Ochako asked on the night before the dance. Do you mind if we practice one more time before the big event? Quote dot. Sure, Midoriya said. Which one should we start with? Tango, she asked. Sure, he responded as he took her right hand and placed his right hand behind her back. She then placed her left hand up on his shoulder and they began to step to and fro following the directions that Uwabami had given them. Soon, they twirled, dipped, and even extended out. Finally, after 3 minutes of dancing, they stopped with Midoriya's right hand still on Ochako's back and her body pressed against his chest. That was incredible, Ochako said, trying to catch her breath. Yeah, Midoriya breathed heavily. Sure was. They looked at each other and soon realized how close their faces were. She was able to make out the smallest freckle on his face while he was able to make out the scent of lavender perfume. As they continued to stare at each other, a warm feeling began to build up inside both of them. Neither one could tell what it was, but that it felt strangely good. They then noticed the other's lips, hers pink and soft, his pale and rough. Almost on instinct, Ochako and Midoriya closed their eyes and slowly leaned in toward each other, tempting to close the gap between their lips until Midoriya, Ochako, there you are. Say, I've been looking for my iPod shuffle. Have either of you seen it anywhere? Kaminari's sudden entrance caused Midoriya and Ochako to snap their eyes open and stare at the electricity user, who in turn was shocked as well. He asked as he saw the two still in each other's arms. Am I interrupting something? No, of course not. Midoriya said as he let go of Ochako and left some distance between them. We were just finishing up practice before the dance tomorrow. Right, Ochako. Huh, Ochako asked, still in a daze about what had almost happened. Oh, right, she said with realization. We were just practicing the tango and we just needed to brush up on it well. Deku, she said turning to face Midoriya and sticking out her hand. I feel like we've got this contest in the bag, right? Sure thing, Ochako. Midoriya responded, shaking her hand. Well, I'll see you tomorrow then. You too, Deku, she said as both students made their way up the stairs to their rooms, leaving a dumbfounded Kaminari staring up at them. I've got this strange feeling that I interrupted something, he thought, but I can't put my finger on it. Meanwhile, when Midoriya and Ochako both closed their respective doors, both slid down the door and thought, way to ruin the moment, Kaminari. The next day, the entire school was abuzz with excitement about the dance. Classes after noon were cancelled in order to give students time to prepare. The gymnasium was closed off in order to set up tables, chairs and the dance floor, and there were even rumors that the principal had hired several bands and singers to perform, including the legendary Meline Eon. For Class 1A, there was pandemonium, especially for the girls. Immediately after their last class, Momo brought all the girls to a salon to get their hair, nails, and faces done. Afterwards, they all went to the clothes store in order to pick up their dresses and make sure they still fit. When they arrived back to their dormitory at 3 p.m., they noticed the boys were vegging out in the living room, playing videos games and chatting away. Thankful that they didn't notice them, the girls snuck up to their rooms to get their dresses and makeup on by 4 p.m. The boys began to head upstairs to their rooms to get into their suits and retrieve their corsages. While the boys were getting dressed, Mina snuck from her room to Ochako's door and knocked. Hey Ochako, she called out. It's Mina, can I come in? Sure. Came Ochako's voice. Mina opened the door and gasped in awe by what she saw. Ochako was wearing a pink, strapless dress that had a frilly bottom that still covered her butt, but also showed off her legs. There was also a big, pink bow on the back of the dress. In addition to the dress, Ochako was also wearing pink, fingerless gloves, a pearl necklace given to her by her mother just for the occasion, and a pink flower placed securely in her hair. She was also wearing pink dance shoes. My God, Mina said as she looked at her friend. You look beautiful. Midoriya's a very lucky guy. Thanks, Ochako said with a smile as she looked in the mirror and spun around to get a good view of the dress. This is great, she thought. I get to go to a dance, wear this beautiful dress, and I get to dance with Deku. No schoolwork, no training, and no villains. A sudden realization hit her as she thought those words. What if? What if we don't get another night like this where we're safe and happy? What if something happens to one of us and we never recover from it? What if? The next time I touch or am near Deku, it will be the last time for either of us. Ochako. Mina's voice snapped Ochako out of her thoughts. Are you okay? You looked like you were zoning out for a second. Oh sorry, Mina, Ochako said frantically. I was just lost in thought. Okay, Mina said, though she knew something was bugging her friend. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. She looked at the text message and smiled up at Ochako. Yuga just let me know that the guys are ready. Are you sure? Ochako said, and with that, the two girls left Ochako's room and made their way toward the stairs. Messieurs, Yuga Aoyama called out from atop the flight of stairs at Midoriya, Kaminari, Hiroshima, and Shoto, all of whom had corsages with them. For weeks, you have waited for this special night to dine and dance with the madam of your dreams. And now, I present to you, your ladies. First, for Monsieur Todoroki, I present to you Madame Yaoyorozu. As Shoto watched Momo turn the corner, his eyes widened in surprise. Momo was wearing a long sleeveless red dress that reached down to her ankles with a dark red cloth wrapped around the area between her stomach and her chest. In addition, she was wearing high-heeled red shoes, a white fur wrap, and carried a blue purse in her hand. Instead of tying her hair up in her signature ponytail, she had decided to let it down with the ends looking wavy. To Shoto, it was like looking at heaven in human form. Momo made her way down the stairs until she stopped in front of Shoto. You look. Shoto was at a complete loss for words at how beautiful she looked. The rest of the boys were stunned. They had never seen Shoto act all nervous. Momo, on the other hand, responded by smiling up at him and planting a small kiss on Shoto's right cheek. You look handsome as well, she said. Shoto returned the smile, helped put the corsage on her left wrist, and moved out of the way for the next girl. Next on our fabulous lineup, Yuga said while showing off his sparkles, is the gorgeous Madame Kyoka from Monsieur Kaminari. Kyoka appeared at the top wearing a simple long, pink dress that reached down to her knees. Unlike Momo's, her dress had straps for the shoulders. She walked down and gave a very small smile to Kaminari. Wow, Kaminari said as he helped put her corsage on, you look incredible. Kyoka's cheeks turned bright red as she heard this. You look handsome, too. She mumbled. Kaminari gave a toothy smile as the two of them joined Shoto and Momo. Coming up next, Yuga continued, is the lovely date for Monsieur Kirishima, Madame Ashido. Mina came into view wearing a dress that was similar to Kyoka's, except that it was bright blue and had a bow attached to it. Kirishima smiled as she approached him. Wow, Kirishima exclaimed. You looking stunning. Then again, you look beautiful in every dress you wear. Mina giggled and planted a kiss on his lips before the two of them joined the others. And finally, Yuga said with such gusto, and my personal favorite. For Monsieur Midoriya, I present Madame Uraraka. Slowly, Ochako made her way around the top of the stairs to stand in view of Midoriya. When she saw him, she almost gasped with surprise. Midoriya was wearing a green tuxedo with a white undershirt, a red belt and bow tie, and green, fingerless dance gloves. He was also sporting green dance shoes. From the look on his face, it seemed like he was at a loss for words as well. She made her way down the steps until she was right in front of him. "Yull look handsome, DD Deku," she said nervously. Thanks, he replied nervously. "Yull look beautiful as well." With shaking hands, he slipped her corsage onto her left wrist. We should probably get going, Iida said. The dance will be starting in 30 minutes. As the class left their dormitory, however, Kirishima said, I'm sorry, but I have to address the elephant in the room. Iida, he said as he turned to the class rep, why are you holding a corsage in your hand? Everyone's heads turned and saw that Kirishima was right. Iida indeed had a plastic box with a corsage in it in his right hand. Oh, Iida stated in surprise as his cheeks turned a pinkish hue. Well, you see, Idod may have taken some advice. That is to say, I never expected her to. Midoriya and Ochako turned to each other in surprise. Never had they seen Iida so flustered and embarrassed at the same time. Who did you ask to the dance, Iida? Mina asked slyly. Go on. Tell us we won't laugh. Hey, Iida, a strongly familiar voice called out. Looking around, Class 1A noticed someone in a silver dress zip-line through the air until the cable detached and she landed with both feet. "Sorry I'm late," she said. "Power loader wouldn't let me leave until I finished making some repairs to that excavator Principal Nezu used during the final exam." "Mei Hatsume," Class 1A shouted in surprise. "You're Ida's date." "Yep," Mei said with a smile. "Oh, you gotta tell us how he asked you," Mina said with stars in her eyes. "I asked her courteously and professionally, nothing more," Iida said as he put the corsage on Mei's left wrist and the group made their way to the dance. "He was actually a blushing, stuttering mess when he asked me," Mei whispered to Midoriya and Ochako. "You should have seen the look on his face when I said yes. It was actually kind of cute." Midoriya and Ochako both covered their mouths in order to hide their laughter. When Class 1A and Mei reached the gymnasium, their mouths opened wide with surprise. The room was set for a dance, all right. On one half of the room were circular tables and chairs for people to sit at and long tables that were lined with different kinds of food. On the other side was a dance floor that was 3 times the length and width of their classroom and a stage with mics, a sound system, a DJ booth, and a long table with 5 chairs. Hanging from the ceiling were multicolored lights, streamers of different colors, and a huge disco ball that rotated slowly. After they got a view of the room, the class all went their separate ways. Midoriya and Ochako decided to sit with Momo and Shoto, Mina and Kirishima, Kyoka and Kaminari, and Mei and Iida. After chatting for a bit, the two decided to go to the dinner tables for a quick bite. There was fancy tuna, sushi, dumplings, onigiri, teriyaki beef and chicken, and taiyaki for dessert. As they were about to pick up a set of tongs, they heard, "Ochako, you look absolutely stunning." "Izuku." The two students turned around sharply at the two familiar voices. There, standing in front of them as plain as day, were Ochako's parents and Midoriya's mother, Inko, all of whom were beaming from ear to ear. "Mommy, Daddy," Ochako cried out as she ran and hugged her parents. "Mom," Midoriya said as he leaned down to hug his mother. "What are you doing here?" "Well," Inko said, "when I heard that they were looking for chaperones for the school dance, I signed up right away. Besides, it was the perfect opportunity to see my little boy's first dance." "So," a low, gruff voice said, "you're the Deku kid who asked my baby girl to this dance, huh?" Midoriya turned to the man and was immediately petrified by what he saw. The man had to be about 6 feet tall, had broad shoulders and bulging muscles that were visible through his suit, and had hands that looked like they could strangle a person. Izuku looked up at his face and saw that he was not smiling and there was a bit of redness in his eyes. Why, yes, sir," Midoriya stammered as he shivered in his shoes. I'm DD Deku. Well, it's actually Izuku Midoriya." "I see. Well, then," the man paused as he raised his right hand above his head. Midoriya closed his eyes and waited for the inevitable. However, he felt the hand land on his left shoulder instead. He opened his eyes to see the man give him a thumbs up and a toothy smile. "Pleasure to finally meet you, son," he exclaimed wholeheartedly. "It's certainly a pleasure to meet you, Izuku," the woman standing next to him said. One look at her and Midoriya knew immediately that she was Ochako's mother. Like her daughter, she had the same hair style and color and those rosy cheeks. "We were both so eager to meet the boy she's told us so much about." "You told your parents about me?" Izuku asked as he looked at Ochako. Her cheeks turned bright red at this question. "I may have mentioned you to them, once or twice," she responded meekly. Excuse me, Inko said as she looked at Ochako, but you wouldn't happen to be Ochako Uraraka, would you? Yes, I am, Ochako said as she bowed to Inko. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Midoriya. It's a pleasure to meet you too, dear. Inko said with a smile. Izuku has told me so much about you. Has he? Ochako said with a smirk and a raised eyebrow toward Midoriya. I may have mentioned you to her once or twice. He responded with a smile. Well, look who showed up to the party. A familiar voice rang out. Ochako, Midoriya, and their parents turned to see Nito and Itsuka standing behind them. Nito was wearing a traditional tuxedo while Itsuka was wearing the dress she wore in the commercial that she was in with Uebami and Momo during her internship. I hope you two are up to the task of competing in this dance. Nito continued. Though I imagine it will be a struggle for you, it certainly will be entertaining for me, and the best part is that you'll be in front of your parents when it happens. Well, then, ciao. As he and Itsuka walked away, Itsuka turned her head to mouth a sorry to the parents and a good luck to Midoriya and Ochako. At least the girl seems nice, Inko said with a stern tone. Ochako, Mr. Uraraka said as he placed a hand on his daughter's shoulder. I know your mother and I always taught you to respect others and play nice during competitions. In the case, however, he added with sternness in his voice, be sure to put that boy in his place. The rest of the dance went smoothly. Many of the students danced to the music of bands and singers like The Daunted, Big Time Crush, Alley Boys, Ravage Garden, and In Sync. Those who went to the dance solo tried to dance with others. Mineta had to be dragged out by Mr. Izawa for almost spiking the punch bowl. Midoriya and Ochako were enjoying themselves, laughing, dancing and singing to every song. Suddenly, a cough into a microphone caused everyone to turn their attention to the stage. Standing on an elevated podium was Nezu, the principal of UA Academy. He was dressed in a black tuxedo with shiny, black shoes. Good evening, everyone, he said. I hope you are all enjoying yourselves at our first school dance. Now, I would like all of those who signed up for the dance contest to come forward. Immediately, Midoriya, Ochako, and the other students from the dance class stepped forward. Excellent, Nezu continued. Now, each couple will be assigned to perform a certain dance to the song of our choosing. While you are dancing, the judges will be grading you based on your pose, footwork, and how much you put into the dance. He gestured with his hand to the long table next to him, where present Mike, Uebami, Sekijiro Khan, 13, and All Might sat. Midoriya glanced at All Might, who gave his disciple a thumbs up. They will be grading your score on a scale from 1 to 10. Whoever gets the highest score wins and gets to perform the final dance of the evening. Now then, will Mr. Kaminari and Ms. Kyoka please step forward? As the dances continued, the scores stood as Kaminari Kyoka, 36. Hiroshima Mina, 40. Shoto Momo, 42. As the students watched Nito and Itsuka perform the Charleston, Midoriya started to get nervous. What if they messed up? What if they did something embarrassing in front of the judges, or worse, their parents? He then felt a hand squeeze his and he turned to look at Ochako, who was smiling at him. I know you're nervous, she said. But don't worry, we've got this. Hearing her say those words caused Midoriya to smile back. Thank you very much, you too. Principal Nezu said as Nito and Itsuka bowed. Now, will the judges please cast their scores? Each judge raised his and her votes at different times. Present Mike, 9. Uebami, 9. Sekijiro Khan, 10. 13. 8. All might. 8. 10. Mina said angrily as she flailed her arms and legs while Kirishima held her back. You jerk. You gave a 6. And now, Principal Nezu stated, will Mr. Midoriya and Ms. Uraraka come forward? When they came up, Nezu continued, you two will be performing a tango to the song, Sway. Good luck. As the music began to play, Midoriya held onto Ochako's back and pulled her in close. The warmth of each other's bodies caused their heartbeats to speed up. However, they kept their composure as they began to move to the music. As they dipped, spun, kicked, and leaned forward, the crowd of students oohed and awed at the way they moved. It was like watching actual professionals performing. Even Present Mike and Uwabami were fascinated by how well the two students moved. Like a flower bending in the breeze. Bend with me, sway with ease. When we dance you have a way with me, stay with me, sway with me. On the last verse, Midoriya extended Ochako out and brought her back in, causing her to spin. Ochako stopped her spinning by pressing herself against Midoriya's chest while his arms still rested against her back. The entire gymnasium roared with applause as the music ceased. Even Nezu clapped his hands in admiration. Ochako and Midoriya looked up at each other, breathing deeply. Midoriya couldn't help but smile and laugh a little. Ochako, on the other hand, was not laughing or smiling. Her mind was somewhere else. In her mind, she was back to the questions that invaded her earlier. Slowly, she backed away from Midoriya. Ochako, Midoriya asked, his smile fading immediately as he watched his best friend back away. I'm sorry. She said, I just need some air. And with that, Ochako turned on her heel and hurriedly made her way out of the gymnasium. The cheers and applause ceased as the other students watched her leave. Midoriya stood in the center of the building, confused. Was it something he said? Did he do something wrong? Without a moment's hesitation, he ran after her, away from the confused and worried students. Ochako. Midoriya called out as he continued searching for his date. Ochako. He had checked everywhere. The classrooms, the cafeteria, even daring to check in the girls' restrooms. But everywhere he looked, he couldn't find her. He was about to give up hope when he heard sobbing coming from the courtyard in the center of the school. He hurried over to where the sobbing was the strongest. Sure enough, there was Ochako, sitting on a stone bench and crying into her hands. Oh, Ochako. Midoriya asked nervously, trying so hard not to frighten her. Ochako's head snapped up at the mention of her name. She turned to see Midoriya staring back at her. She quickly wiped away the tears in her eyes and on her cheeks. Oh, she sniffed. Hey Deku. Once he saw that she was calm enough to talk to, Midoriya slowly made his way toward her. Ochako, he said, if I did or said something to you that made you run away, I want you to know that I'm sorry and... No, 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 Ochako said, waving her hands frantically. It wasn't you. Deku, you did nothing wrong. Then why did you run off like that? You had me and your parents both worried. Deku said as he sat down next to her on the bench. Well, the truth is, Ochako began, but she stopped in order to try to compose herself. This night has been one of the best I've ever had. Dancing with you, talking to my friends, it's like I'm a normal teenager having a great time. But when I finished dancing with you, reality seemed to set back and I remembered that we live in a world in which villains continue to thrive and that one of us could get hurt or worse. I mean, she continued as her fists clenched in her lap and she started to shake. What if we don't get another night like this where we're safe and happy? What if something happens to one of us and we never recover from it? What if the next time I touch you that close, it will be the last time for either of us? She had to stop as tears began to flow down her face once again. You and I wouldn't be able to accomplish our dreams, our parents would be devastated, and we would never see our friends Aga. At that exact moment, Midoriya wrapped both his arms around Ochako and pulled her in for a tight embrace. Ochako was shocked by this. Other than dancing, they had never had this much close contact before. It's true that we live in a world with villains and we could get hurt or worse, Midoriya said softly as he kept holding onto Ochako. But that's why we have to live each day like it's our last. We have to make the most out of these memories. But, Ochako said weakly, what if one of us dies? What if you die? Midoriya loosened his hold on Ochako, but still kept his hands on her upper arms. Well then, he said, I'll entrust you to continue my dream and be the next symbol of hope. Ochako covered her mouth at this. Deku trusted her so much that he was willing to trust her to carry both dreams. And in turn, he continued, I'll carry on your dream if something were to happen to you. I never go back on my word. That's a promise. Ochako couldn't help but smile a little as she cried. Once again, Midoriya had given her hope for a brighter future just by saying a few simple words. She soon wiped away the rest of her tears and smiled back at Midoriya. All right, she said as she lifted up her right pinky finger. Let's pinky promise each other to carry on the dreams of the other, no matter what. Midoriya's face turned a bright pink. As soon as Ochako was back to her normal, bubbly self, he went back to being a stuttering lovable guy. Oh, okay. He stammered as he locked his pinky finger with hers. As soon as their fingers loosened, Midoriya stood up and extended his hand out to Ochako. Want to go back to the dance? Sure, Ochako said with a smile as she took his hand. Just as they were making their way across the courtyard, however, the floodlights suddenly turned on, causing the two to cover their eyes. Once their eyes adjusted, they soon saw that the walkway surrounding the courtyard was filled with students and teachers. As they looked around, they were able to see many of their classmates and even their parents, many of whom were smiling at them. Attention all students, Principal Nezu's voice said. With a final score of 47 points, the judges have decided that tonight's final dance shall be performed by this couple. He extended an arm out toward Ochako and Midoriya as he said this. Just then, the lights in the gazebo turned on to reveal a small group of people with musical instruments like violins, basses, and even a piano. A woman was standing in front of the orchestra. It was pop superstar Meline Eon. She turned to Midoriya and Ochako and gave them a small smile. Midoriya suddenly remembered what Uwabami had taught him on how to ask a lady to dance with him. He straightened himself up, turned to Ochako, and coughed to get her attention. Ochako Uraraka, he said as he bowed and extended his hand. May I have this dance? Ochako was halfway between thrilled and terrified. On one hand, she was thrilled that Midoriya had offered to dance with her. On the other, she was almost terrified to be doing a slow dance in front of so many people. However, she chose to compose herself and took Midoriya's hand. You shall, she said with a small smile. As the music from the gazebo began to play softly, the two students got into the waltz stance and moved their feet as Mrs. Eon began to sing. How does a moment last forever? How can a story never die? It is love we must hold on to. Never easy, but we try. As Ochako kept herself pressed against Midoriya, she felt the strange, warm, bubbly feeling she experienced yesterday. As she listened to Mrs. Eon's words, a sudden theory came to mind. This feeling, she thought, is this being in love with someone? Sometimes our happiness is captured. Somehow, our time and place stand still. Love lives on inside our hearts and always will. As they continued to dance in the courtyard, Midoriya began to feel that same sensation as well. If this is love, he thought, then it feels good. Like I can do anything as long as she's next to me. Minutes turned to hours, days to years then gone. But when all else has been forgotten, still our song lives on. Maybe some moments weren't so perfect. Maybe some memories not so sweet. But we have to know some bad times. Or our lives are incomplete. At those words, Midoriya and Ochako remembered the conversation between them prior to the dance. It is scary to think that this may be our last great night together. They both thought. They then pivoted their heads to look at each other, seeing the worry in each other's eyes. Then when the shadows overtake us just when we feel all hope is gone, we'll hear our song and know once more. Our love lives on. After hearing the verse, however, the two students gave each other small smiles. As long as she lives, they both thought, she will continue both our dreams, no matter what. I guess that's why I love him, her. At that moment, the floodlights dimmed and what looked like sky lanterns floated down and hovered above the courtyard, giving off a pleasant glow. One quick of the head and both friends saw May fiddling with what looked like a portable control pad. Her eyes met theirs and she gave a grin and a thumbs up. How does a moment last forever? How does our happiness endure? Through the darkest of our troubles. Love is beauty, love is pure. Both Midoriya and Ochako had to thank May for the sky lanterns. For both of them, the light emanating from the lanterns caused the other's features to heighten. They were at a loss for words. Looking at their partner was like looking at heaven. Love pays no mind to desolation. It flows like a river through the soul, protects, persists, and perseveres, and makes us whole. Oh Ochako, Midoriya said quietly as he continued to look into her chocolatey brown eyes. There's something I have to tell you. What is it? Ochako asked quietly. Minutes turned to hours, days to years then gone. But when all else has been forgotten, still our song lives on. I love you, Midoriya said. When she heard this, Ochako gave a smile so radiant that it could rival the sun. I love you, too, she said happily. How does a moment last forever? When our song lives on. As the music begun to slowly end, Midoriya and Ochako both leaned their faces close to each other. After a second of hesitation, their lips finally made contact as the two friends kissed. Ochako placed both her hands on Midoriya's shoulders while he placed his left hand on her cheek. Around them, there was a tremendous ruckus of applause, cheers, and whistles. Inko and Mr. Uraraka were both crying tears of joy at the sight of their babies sharing their first kiss, while Mrs. Uraraka smiled and comforted the two parents. Kirishima, Kaminari, and Mina were shouting cheers and congratulations. Nito was mumbling something like, "Damn jerks," and probably bribed the judges, before Itsuka used her quirk to smack him upside the head. All Might had transformed into his hero form and gave the couple a thumbs up of approval. Even Meline Eon was clapping with the students. Soon, the two lovers' lips separated and they looked at each other. They smiled as they remembered the song's meaning. Even in the darkest of times, their love for each other would live on, no matter what. Where stories live. Discover now.